Welcome to State of Search by DFW SEM. I am Chris O'Connor, your host, and we are going to bring on Kevin Adams, who is our president of State of Search by DFW SEM, and he's going to share some information with you. So, Kevin, here we go.
Thank you, Chris. So we've been doing this for 19 years, search engine and other digital marketing. Your State of Search by DFW SEM board, of course, myself, Kevin Adams, Vice President Tim Shane, Treasurer Mike Stewart, Secretary is Julie Jones, VP of State of Search and Hospitality Chris O'Connor, VP of Membership and Registration Casey Marquis, VP of Sponsorship Shelley Ellis, VP of Communications Bill Allen, Board at Large Rachel Black, Jenna Williams, and Jeff Ferguson. If you want to participate in a committee with us, you can email us at membership@dfwsem.org. Right now, before the 5th, if you buy your tickets for State of Search Conference by the 15th, for in-person, you'll save $100 and $50 for virtual tickets. Go to stateofsearch.org. And if you're looking for a job looking for hiring, email us at info@dfwsem.org, and we'll see if we can help you. Let us know what you think. Fill out our meeting survey, dfwsem.org/virtual-meeting-survey. And if you have any questions, put them in the chat. All right, and I'd like to introduce Casey Marquis, as I mentioned. Take it away.
Thanks so much, Kevin. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this month's presentation. We're very fortunate to have a very knowledgeable and talented digital professional with us tonight. You're going to be listening to Jared Bowman, who is the co-founder and CEO of 201 Creative, which is here in Southern California. Jared, it's funny because he's less than 20 minutes away from me here in Ramona. I couldn't believe that we were so close. And I was fortunate to appear on his Niche Pursuits podcast, a very well-known, world-renowned podcast that he hosts monthly, a couple months ago, and we've got to know each other. And he was very gracious at accepting our invitation to come and speak about the topic of deleting content in bulk for SEO. And Jared's an expert in business strategy, marketing, search engine optimization. As I mentioned, he hosts the popular Niche Pursuits podcast, and he's been a contributor along with myself for Search Engine Land for several years. He has a wealth of information in business, 20 plus years to be exact. And I'm excited to listen to his presentation tonight, which is again all about deleting content as part of a larger strategy. And he's going to walk us through, I believe, several individual case studies where he's deleted content in bulk and examined the intricacies of how that was successful and some of the bottom line takeaways for that. So without any further ado, Jared, welcome so much. Thanks for joining us. Take it away.
Thanks, Casey. It's great to be here, and I'm really excited for this evening. I absolutely love doing these types of presentations. I love doing them in person, I'll admit, but we don't get to get in front of as many people when we are in person, and so these kind of digital online events are really cool as well. Let's see. We have a chat window, and this topic in particular is one where a lot of people typically have questions. If I ever post about this online, I get pushback, which is awesome and welcomed. So really encourage you, for those of you who are watching this live, to use that chat, ask questions. I will try to get to questions at the end. I'll try to keep an eye on them as well, though. So let's go ahead and dive in. I got a couple screens up here too. So if you see me looking off to one side or the other, that's why. So we're talking today about the why, the when, and the how to deleting content in bulk, again, for an SEO purpose. Now, there's a lot of reasons that you might need to delete content, that you might need to delete content on a website. But today, what we're really going through is as part of a larger strategy to both improve content quality, increase topical authority, there's a real strong case made for deleting content. Again, like Casey said, my name is Jared Bowman. And you kind of got the cliff notes of how you can follow along with what I'm doing, or if you want to look up more about me. So let's go ahead and dive in here. So why consider deleting content? Now, this is something that most of the time when I present the idea of deleting content to a client, there's like a little blank look that comes across their face. They are not excited. And no one's really very excited about deleting content. Usually you either spent good hard money on that content, and so you're looking immediately at dollar signs going down the drain, or perhaps even worse, you produce some of that content yourself. So there's a personal connection to it. There is a real reticence to deleting it because you did it yourself. It's almost sometimes like a bit of an insult as well. Like trying to find a way to deliver news to clients that I think that they should potentially consider deleting some content is always tough because you're trying to find a way around hurting people's feelings. So it's a dicey topic, right? But it's oftentimes a really, really good solution. Let's talk about why. Number one, low quality content. Now, this one probably makes a little more sense to people, but let's spend a little bit of time on it. Low quality content on a website could be defined in a number of different ways. The most important thing to think about this, though, and we'll dive into more details as we go, is it's low quality content in the eyes of Google and other readers, right? And so we have a certain lens about what we think our customer wants, our reader wants, and also what Google wants. And oftentimes they're not in lockstep, and so that's sorting through that is important as we define what low quality content is. A second reason, and this is becoming more and more and more important as the years go by, I would say it's never been more important than today, is probably this topic of authority and relevance and having tight content silos to promote this. And if you've wandered off topic, as it were, if you've talked on your website about too many topics, chances are you've diluted your authority or you don't even have authority. And as a result of not having authority, it's hard to rank these days. Topical authority is certainly a buzzword, and we're going to talk more about what topical authority is and how deleting content can play into that. So those are the two big reasons to consider deleting content. Now let's talk about the low quality content part, okay? So I'm going to spend some time here kind of building out the case for low quality content and for topical relevance using data and interviews and other things, because I want to make sure that everyone understands that most of this is pretty well established now in the way the algorithms work, especially when it comes to low quality content. So raise a virtual hand if you were around and doing SEO when the Panda update rolled out. Probably, I should look it up actually, probably a decade ago now at this point, honestly. It's been a long time, but we had the Panda update and the Penguin update, and I do that a lot on calls. I'll put the words together. Panda was specifically targeting low quality content or thin content. Now it was an update I see Tim raise his hand. Awesome. Panda's update was targeting low quality content. Penguin's update was targeting backlinks, link schemes, link problems. So Panda is the update that we want to talk about as it relates to low quality content. And the Panda update was looking at low quality content, which could be thin content. It could be inaccurate content. It could be poorly structured content. It could be content that was difficult to understand or to read. It could be content that was grammatically incorrect to an extreme version. But low quality content can impact a site's rankings and therefore its SEO. So when we remove low quality content, we can improve a website's rankings and thus its SEO, its optimization for search, because it raises the value of the content and the quality, right? So determining what's low quality, now that's the silver bullet here, and we're going to kind of get into that. But let's look at some more details here. So this is from Gary Eels, who is a longstanding Google employee with the search team. Here's a quote from Gary about this topic. Panda, and by the way, I'm going to get into how Panda is now basically baked into the algorithm if you're wondering, but Panda measures the quality of a site pretty much by looking at the vast majority of the pages. Essentially, it allows them to take the quality of the whole site into account when they're ranking pages from that particular site, and then adjust ranking accordingly for the pages. Now, I know a lot of people have this theory that pages rank, not websites. And a lot of what I'm going to show you tonight is going to at least play in contrast with that. I'm not here to say that pages don't rank and that whole side of things is debunked, but there is certainly an element of your domain, of your entire website's quality playing its role in what your website can rank for. We see that especially in Google updates, okay? So low quality content can basically Google can be evaluating your site. You can see your rankings increasing. New articles you're publishing will pick up rankings. Articles that have been out for a while will continue to rank well. And then we'll see in an update that all articles will drop. Not single articles, not certain articles, but all articles will drop. That's oftentimes very closely related to low quality content across a website, right? So we can see these threads of how algorithm updates roll out and how they're targeting low quality content site-wide. Here's another quote about this. This is going to be from John Mueller. And John is pretty active when he talks about this kind of stuff. I could point to 3 or 4 of his Webmaster Hangouts where he talks about this. From our point of view, our quality algorithms do look at the website overall. So they do look at everything that's indexed. And again, what we're trying to look at here is quality content. And is it individually ranked and rated, or is it domain rated? Because once we establish that content's quality of your website is rated and ranked really across the board in terms of your holistic domain, that's where we start to have this conversation about deleting content from the standpoint of helping your rankings, right? So let's say now that we have established that we have low quality content. I'm going to get into some more details about that, but let me kind of put out there what the 2 different avenues we can go down are, right? We can either delete it or improve it, okay? So here's where the conversation can hit some friction with people. This is where friction can happen. Is it always better from a low quality standpoint to improve your content? Yes, 100% agree. However, I run an agency, and in my agency, what we are faced with is a client, their website, and their budgets, right? Okay. And so when it comes to a budget and how much a client can feasibly spend, now we have to look at that low quality content from the standpoint of ROI, or return on investment. Okay. And so this is where, as an SEO, a lot of times we need to put our business hat on and work with a client or yourself, if it's your own website, to understand what the best return on your investment is as it relates to low quality content. Okay. And that's where sometimes deleting it can come into play. Sometimes it is just cost prohibitive or time prohibitive to update all the content that needs updating. Okay. And if that's the case, then deleting it can become, we'll just say, a consideration, and a strong consideration. So what are the signs of low quality content? Low quality content can look like thin content. And when we say thin content, we're talking about content that doesn't have a lot of meat and potatoes to it. Low word count, although that does not necessarily mean that you need a high word count to rank, but low word count in relation to other articles that are ranking for the similar topic. Thin content can also be very vague. It can lack detail. It can lack precision in the answers and in the quality of the answer. It can lack facts. It can lack details. It can maybe not be from an expert, especially if it's YMYL type of content. And at the end of the day, a lot of times low quality content is just content that doesn't rank. If you have a website that's been publishing content for a while now, and you have an article that goes out there and it's not ranking after, say, 6 months or so, that's a bad sign. There's a lot of reasons why it might not be ranking. Maybe it's got no internal links pointing to it, and it's an orphan page. Maybe it's about a new topic that Google is still trying to understand you on. But generally speaking, low quality content is probably not going to rank over the course of time. So improve it or delete it. That's really the ROI conversation. Sometimes deleting content is the faster move to getting the website rescored and reevaluated by Google. Let's walk through a quick theoretical scenario, but one that I see happen a lot. We just went through with a client last week that we took on where this was the case. If you've been in SEO a while, you've heard the phrase, "it works until it doesn't." And this is a lot of times how this plays itself out. A client that we were working with just last week came to us because they had just around 1,000 articles and pages on their website. Not big, but certainly not, small, right? Like enough to where whatever decision had to be made was going to put a dent in time and budget. Their article had systematically gotten devalued in the March 2023 update. When we looked into Google Analytics, we saw that, again, it wasn't like their top 3 articles lost the #1 keyword ranking and dropped to number 5, and therefore 60% of their traffic went. That does happen. And that's the important part when you're analyzing these things. You have to understand what happened in the ranking, in the ranks, and in the update. No, what happened in this situation, and one that makes it a high candidate for deleting content, is that by and large, over 80% of the articles dropped in traffic. Okay. And so we saw a site-wide algorithmic penalty of sorts being put on this site, right? And so as we dove in, we saw all the threads of low quality content, right? Very generic content, low word count content, and stuff like this. And so we basically had 800 articles that had dropped in the algorithm update. Now, when we go to our client to talk about this, they're basically faced with the idea that they have to update and improve 800 articles or work their way through deleting some, maybe all of that content, right? And so oftentimes that's where you have to make that decision, because if you want to improve all that content, that's great. But keep in mind, you have to improve all that content before Google's, in theory, going to like your site again, re-rank some of those keywords that you had. That can take a long time. So sometimes deleting content, it isn't even because you can't improve it all. It's because it's the faster approach to getting the low quality content off your site and getting Google to be able to understand the quality content that's left. Okay, let's talk now about the topical authority side of things. If you do have any questions on the low quality content side, feel free to go ahead and put that in the chat. Again, I will be taking questions at the end though, so you can put it at the end as well. On the topical authority side of things, and this is where it gets even trickier, because you might want to improve that content, but it might still hurt you when it comes to topical authority. Let's get into topical authority. So this is a little bit of a newer term. I mean, if you're old school, you still know topical authority was at play, but it was a lot more possible back in the old days, even 5-6 years ago, to rank for kind of random topics on your website. As long as you got the keyword density right, as long as you were accurately targeting the right content, like you can kind of rank for a wide variety of different things. Nowadays, topical authority is far more important. And topical authority refers to Google's perception of a website's expertise on a particular subject. Subject, I'll put my hands up as air quotes, it can be very subjective. And so oftentimes we're kind of arguing over, well, I am a topical authority on this. I have written about this topic in depth. But what Google might see as topically relevant might be a little more narrow than you think, or than that you feel as an expert. So get a little muddy there. But so building authority, a lot of different ways to build topical authority, right? So backlinks from authoritative sites in that topic range, that is big. I always say, and a lot of people say this, not my quote, but what's the best backlink you can get? Well, a backlink from the website that's ranking, number 1, number 2, or number 3 for the topic you're trying to rank for. That's really what you want, right? Because it sends such a strong signal in terms of the topical authority that you have. Internal linking can really help a lot, because it allows Google to connect the dots between all the different topics that you're writing about inside of the larger topic. Using relevant anchor text as well. I just had an interview on the Niche Pursuits podcast with a gentleman, Cyrus Shepard, who had done an internal link study of 18 million internal links. And the anchor text was highly relevant for an increase in rankings as it related to topical authority. Another way to get topical authority, and perhaps one of my favorites, is by publishing in-depth content specifically in that topical silo. So these are different ways to get topical authority. And publishing lots of content inside of a topic is not the only way, but it's a great way to get topical authority. Deleting content, now as it relates to authority and relevance, now we've got some other things to consider. So again, John Mueller quoted here, for search engines, you're building out your reputation of knowledge on that topic. If Google can recognize that a site is good for the broader topic, then it can surface that site for broader queries on the topic as well. It's this idea that Google is, again, looking at you on a domain level, not an individual article level. They're looking at you on a domain level and trying to understand, based on your backlinks, your on-page work, and your content, what you are topically in depth about, what you're a topical expert on. And this happens a lot where websites will stray off topic, right? Imagine sitting down with a professor at a university, and the professor, like I went to UCSD, and so it's a huge college. They've got professors everywhere. I don't even know how big their staff is, but I went to school for econometrics, which is like econ and stats mixed together. And we had experts, like some of the leaders in econometrics there. And how do we know they were experts? Well, they had done their PhDs in this, so they had an education they could point to. They were cited and quoted everywhere, and they spent all of their days talking about researching and continuing to proliferate a specific topic in econometrics, right? So they were an authority on that topic. Now, I guarantee you that they could sit down and talk about broader economics, but in the scheme of broader economics, you could point to other people as far more authoritative and far more relevant, right? And so, however, though, if you were to take a bigger step back, you'd be just fine getting their advice on the broader topic of economics when you compare them up against, say, a medical doctor, right? And so this idea of authority is convoluted a bit. Like, how do we know if we're an authority or not? And how do we know what we are an authority in? Well, again, the best way is to see what you rank for right now. That's going to be one of the best ways to see what you're topically authoritative on. You might have 50 articles about a certain topic, but if you don't rank many of those articles or any of them, you're not an expert on them. So just publishing the content does not make you authoritative on it. You have to rank the content. Google has to see you as valuable for that topic in order to be kind of considered an authority. So with all this in mind, where does deleting content come into play? Well, deleting content is a really great way to reset the authority evaluation in Google's eyes. It's not the only way. Again, it's not the only way. Building better backlinks to this content is one other way to do it. Better and tighter internal linking, all of these different things work as well. But the content you have published is one of many factors that go into your authority and your relevance. And ranking today is vital to have authority and relevance. Odds are very low that you're going to rank for something if you're not topically authoritative on it in Google's eyes. So deleting irrelevant content can help a website better focus on its expertise and help Google see that by building stronger topical authority. So that kind of sets the stage here for what we're looking at. At this point, we can kind of go into the first case study. I've got a couple different case studies to share. We'll see how far we get here. This is the one that I ended up writing about in Search Engine Land, and that I just posted about on Twitter, and it's kind of a fun one for a lot of people to engage with. But again, we're really coming at it from the standpoint of deleting content as it relates to both topical authority and low quality content. Is it a silver bullet? No. Deleting content is not a silver bullet. Don't look at it that way. But as part of a greater strategy, it can definitely be effective. Let me get a drink of water here and we'll dive in. Okay, so this is the case study we're going to look at here is a site that we worked on and have had the privilege of continuing to have access to analytics and results and talking about revenue and these kinds of things to this day. So this is a fashion website, and it was originally promoting a single product. When they launched with a single product. Obviously, there were variations of that product. Maybe as an analogy, like you got a water bottle and you sell a single product. So you sell a water bottle, but you sell different sizes of it. You sell different colors of it. So that certainly was going on here, but it was a single product line. The brand was established and founded in 2018, as was the website. And the brand built a lot of content around this product. It didn't just have a like a product page and different the different usual e-com pages. It had built a lot of content, helpful content, informational content around the topic. In mid 2019, the brand expanded into two, I would call it highly related product lines. Okay, so they were very related to its core product. The best way I know of to think about it is that if you're selling this product, you think about who buys that product. Well, these other two products they launched were very, very easy to make a claim that the same person would also buy those two products, right? So these three products seem to really make sense as they all fell under one umbrella. I'm kind of nudging in on this because oftentimes what we see as making sense in the idea of topical authority and the idea of similarly related, Google does not necessarily see that way, or you haven't done a good enough job connecting those dots. We'll kind of see that play itself out here. So as we dove into this, I skipped a slide here. There we go. First part of 2020. So again, they launched those three in mid 2019. First part of 2020, the website started to gain some traction in rankings and organic traffic for these new product lines. Makes sense. 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, 9 months in. This wasn't a very powerful website, fairly low DR. So it took a little while. But the second half of 2020, traffic and rankings has started to decline across all parts of the website. Okay, so we're getting into a year out now, and not only are the new products and informational topics around those dropping a bit in traffic, but so is the flagship product, the first product. And then by early 2021, overall traffic was down 40% from its previous high in June of 2020. Very difficult time of year, I'll say, or a time of our lives to evaluate traffic. 2020 was a throwaway year for doing year-over-year comparisons because of the global pandemic. But some strategies that you can use is to compare traffic in Google Search Console to average ranking and average position. You can go down into the page level, into the query level, or you can do it broadly for the whole domain. And as you start to look, you can start to analyze what's going on. Again, if we lost 40% overnight in a Google update, that's different than slowly chipping away and losing 40%. If we slowly chipped away and lost 40%, but it's because of seasonal reasons, right? Maybe it's a seasonal brand, and so traffic erodes. That's different than if we lost 40% of traffic and rankings, i.e. average position in Google Search Console was also dropping. That was the case here. So you have a gradual loss of rankings, a gradual loss of traffic, and it's related to our average position decreasing. It's not from a sudden Google update. So that's important as you analyze these things. You want to look at all the different sides because different types of traffic drops, different types of positional changes can indicate different things. So analyzing this client, it revealed that expanding into new topics may have diluted the site's original authority, leading to a loss of relevance. Didn't know that for sure. I don't have a direct line with Google, but here's some of the things we were looking at. The oldest product and related content, they were performing worse than in previous years, but not dramatically worse. And I'll show you some screenshots here in a sec. However, the newer content that was published in this product silo was significantly slower to rank. So again, you got to have an idea as you evaluate that, how long is it normally taking my content to rank? Content we were releasing since those product lines had come out was not ranking as quick, wasn't crawling up the SERPs very quickly. The two newest products and their related content had lost the vast majority of its rankings and its traffic. So, it really, all things can't be looked at in a vacuum, but it really did seem like we were dealing with a dilution of authority from these newer product lines. So let's talk about how we kind of did that and how we looked at that. What we did was we grouped content silos when analyzing poor performance. And that's a great strategy if you're out there and you're wondering if topical dilution might be an issue here. Now, again, there's multiple ways and multiple reasons to delete content, low quality content, and topical authority, right? So we're really kind of in this one talking about topical authority. I'm hoping to get to my next one here, my next case study, where we'll see one from the low quality standpoint. But if you're looking at this topical authority issue and maybe identifying whether or not it is this situation, grouping content silos together is a great way to analyze that. And you can kind of see where different problem points might be. So let's go ahead and look at that. And what I've done here is I've shown an Ahrefs graph. You could do this in Google Search Console. You can do it in analytics. Google Ahrefs is kind of great to just get a quick flyby, and it's like the most dramatic screenshot I can show. So, when I'm doing presentations, I kind of pull this one. But here is a screenshot of the newer products that had gotten launched. And you can see I'm comparing traffic in February of 2021 all the way back to June of 2020. June of 2020, right before we launched, or they launched these new product lines. And now in early 2021, and we're seeing that those new products, right? The two new products that were launched previously have been ranking. I mean, look at that. Number 1, number 3, number 6, number 3, number 5, gone. Just gone from the SERPs. Just not even there. If we look at the original product, we can see that there's fluctuations, right? We see stuff going from 4 to 1, dropping from 5 to 8, going from 7 to 3, dropping from 5 to 8, from 6 to 8. So there's a lot of fluctuations, but generally speaking, we're roughly maybe a little down if we went over and looked at actual GA traffic. But you can see that when we split out those silos, the topical silos, how different the traffic was, right? If you only look at it from a high-level view, oh, traffic's dropping 40%. If you drill in, though, and really use this method of breaking out topical silos, you can start to see these things and how they play out. Let me get my glass of water here. When you're hosting a podcast, I'll tell you, that's what I'm normally used to presenting. The other person talking the most. So I always get thrown off when I'm doing these and I'm doing all the talking. But again, going over to Google Analytics, we can kind of see the similar thing. We can identify and isolate the same type of queries in Google Analytics. We're working now on a URL level, and luckily the product was very well structured, so we could, it was well siloed, and so we could really look at that quickly. But we can see the new product traffic had dropped 60%, and it was just a pretty big drop off on the cliff. I talked about overall it was 40%, but the let's see, the new product. Yeah, there we go. Drop of 60%. So I don't have a screenshot of the original product, but we dropped 60% in the new product, overall 40%. So most of that is coming from the new product there. So it's just, again, slicing and dicing gives you this new way. Here are the options, basically. Once we determined that, okay, there we go. Once we determined that it looks like a topical authority issue, and it looks like we've diluted our relevance, there's really 3 options. We can invest heavily in those unproven product lines. We can get a lot more authority by building backlinks and getting a lot more social media exposure, getting talked about more, getting featured more, invest in more content about those product lines and more helpful content. Got to get that content ranked, do a better job of internally linking and creating better sub-silos so that the content can, over time, rank better. We could delete the content in those losing silos. Again, just going for the quick and easy, or do nothing and hope that Google reevaluates the content, which, by the way, I've given this presentation before and people laugh when I say that when I'm in person, but it's not always a bad strategy. Sometimes giving Google a hot minute to figure out what's going on is not a bad strategy. A lot of case studies out there of doing nothing and stuff rebounding, but we'd seen enough data over enough time that it didn't look like that was going to be the situation here. So given the costs and the uncertainty associated with investing in those unproven product lines and the belief that the content in the poorly performing silos wasn't the best available, we decided to delete the redundant content silos. And when I say redundant, I really mean the additional ones, the 2 new product lines. That's tough to convince a client to do. The good news is they weren't driving a ton of revenue, and they didn't spend a ton of money launching these new products. They were kind of like bolt-ons and add-ons. So thank goodness, because trying to convince a client to do that, you got to have a lot of trust and a lot of faith. But they were seeing the revenue numbers that they just weren't selling as many of these. The idea here is that this is immediately deleting all that is going to help raise the overall authority and relevance of the site and the domain, promoting better search engine rankings and increased organic traffic. Okay, so that's the idea here, and that's why we're doing all this, is to try to reset the relevance situation as Google looks at it. Okay, so let's talk about what we actually did. A lot of this we'll see in part and parcel once we've decided that. We had to isolate all the URLs from the poorly performing silos. We had to evaluate each URL to see if it had backlinks or not. we decided and elected to set up 301 redirects from all the URLs that had backlinks. We pointed those to the most relevant pages we were keeping. Okay. Now, I've also seen, and we just with a client 2 weeks ago, a whole different strategy because we actually didn't want those backlinks to continue to regain and maintain that authority. So we actually ditched a lot of those topics and actually didn't preserve those backlinks because we didn't want that topical authority coming through. But in this case, because it was such a new product line, we decided to keep those few the few articles that had gotten some decent links, kept 26% of the URLs we 301 redirected. And then for the rest of them, we removed those URLs and let it 410. So we deleted all that content. 26% we set up 301s to preserve the backlink juice, as it were. 74% we just let them 410. Now I prefer to do 410 as opposed to 404 code. 410 code immediately tells Google this page is no longer live. That's what I want. Deleting content is a lot about telling Google, hey, this is not here anymore. Like, I'm going with the fast approach. I don't want to spend months and months and months updating content and then wait months and months and months for you to recrawl and then wait months and months for you to rescore and then wait months and months for the next update to come out. I want to send you a signal it's gone. And the 410 tells Google not to come back. 404 says it's temporarily gone. And so their crawlers might still come back. After we did all that, we ran a site crawl, fixed any internal links, because now you're going to have a bunch of internal links that are pointing to 301 and 410 pages. Not too bad in our case, because again, it was really well siloed. So let's talk about what ended up happening. I do see some questions, and I'll try to jump over to those once I'm done with what happened. So 3 months later, we got lucky. We had the June and July double core updates of 2021. God, hard to believe that's almost 2 years old now. So 3 months later, traffic spiked 4.5x as a result of those updates. Revenue jumped 2x from its previous low. So didn't take long, and I really do attribute that to deleting the content, sending the 410 signals, giving Google enough time to recrawl and take stock of what the site was now, and we got rewarded for it. 15 months later, traffic had spiked 7.7x, so up almost up 700%. Revenue was up 3x from its previous low. You'll see in the graph there some seasonality at play. This is definitely more of a summertime product a bit. So you do see traffic go up in the summertime. And then here is a nice little screenshot there of where we deleted the content. Like I said, the Ahrefs graphs are always the sexier graphs. I think that's why you see them more. They just look better. But yeah, that's reality there. I will tell you, they get the organic traffic pretty wrong. But it still has gone up significantly, right? And so those are kind of those results there. And you can see the results there in terms of Google Analytics. Oh, it cut it off a little bit. So that's March. That's like last week, basically 2023 compared to the same period of 2 years ago. That's a 726% increase. Let's talk. Let's see. I got some questions I'm seeing here. Let's see, 38 minute mark. Let me go through some of the kind of final analysis on this, and then I'll answer some questions. And if we have time, we'll jump over to the other case study, or if a bunch more questions come in, we'll go with that. So let's see here. Conclusions, because I think this, Julie, I see your question. This might help answer some of that, and I'll ask a few of the other ones. Conclusions. It's almost always better to improve the content rather than delete it. So this whole presentation has been about deleting content, but I acknowledge that in a perfect world, if we could sit down and evaluate the content and say, these are the areas that we're not ranking well because we're not considered an authority by Google, or because the content quality is low. Yeah, better to update that. Maybe in the situation where you evaluate it and the content quality is low, updating that content, making it awesome, that's almost always going to be the better route. Or in a situation where you just aren't considered an authority, improve the content, add more content, build some links. Yeah, that's going to be better. But as we all know, this isn't always possible for a variety of reasons. I talked about the ROI conversation. I talked about the speed issue. So deleting content is not a silver bullet. And this is usually where someone in the crowd will raise their hand and get a little frustrated thinking that I'm promoting this as some fix-all or silver bullet. It has to be spent as part of a larger content plan. Okay. So yes, with that content, the case study I'm showing you, we did continue to build content. We did continue to build backlinks. We did continue to improve topical authority by internally linking, by improving content. We didn't just stop once we deleted the content. So this is part of a larger strategy. But no, I don't think that in this case, if we had kept all that content and just kept publishing new content in the original topical silo, that something like this would have happened, because it would have taken us months and months, almost years, to build back up the overall topical authority of the domain, because we still had that content on the site that Google had deemed not relevant for what our domain was. So it's not a silver bullet. And by the way, it does not work every time. I've had it happen where it didn't. But if you spend the time analyzing the details of the website specific situation, which I tried to give some insight along the way on that, to determine if the use case lines up, it can definitely make sense. And we've done it a lot. We do it with a lot of clients. We're kind of, over the years, have gotten known as the deleting content SEO agency. So we get hired to consider it and do it. And we do it a decent amount. And it does almost always have really positive effects. So again, like I kind of went into, we deleted a lot of content while publishing lots of new topically focused content. If you're looking for a true A/B test about deleting content only and then letting it sit, this isn't it. Pay attention to topical authority. So again, another conclusion, pay attention to topical authority, even if you aren't suffering from traffic drops. Google is constantly tweaking the way its algorithms evaluate authority, and you don't want to fall on the wrong side of core update, okay? Again, this is what happens where we see sites dip like 40, 50%, like that client I talked about from a week or two ago, where everything was fine. It works until it doesn't. So be careful, understand what lanes you're in, look around and make sure that you have the right amount of content and links to be a ranking factor for your lane. Okay. Very important that you don't get out of your lane too much. Right. And it might work for a while, as we saw with this, and then bam, it could happen bam, or it could happen slowly. It's tough. It's a tough ball game we're in here. Again, what are the benefits of deleting content? It's time and cost effective. So deleting low quality content or topically irrelevant content can be a simpler and quicker approach to address topical authority and relevance issues. It can be more cost effective than investing heavily in unproven product lines or hoping Google reevaluates content. That's what we would have had to do here. Hope they reevaluated it, or invest pretty heavily in that. Whereas deleting the content was a pretty quick fix for the brand. So best practices for deleting content are identifying the content to be deleted, and really don't just kind of boot up Google Analytics and go, I'm just going to delete everything that dropped in this update. That's not the way to do it. Just because stuff drops does not mean it's worth deleting. Okay. Just because stuff loses its keywords, right? Like, you got to really roll up your sleeves and start siloing content out. Start looking at content for low quality signals. Start looking at content that could be topically irrelevant and isn't. So it's important to maintain relevant, high quality content while deleting redundant or irrelevant content. So again, if you delete 80% of your site, that's a lot. My second case study shows how long it took us to re-rank a lot of stuff, or to grow, if you will, when we delete a lot of content in bulk. So hopefully you don't have to do that. While in our case, we had to delete 2/3 of the product offerings. They were pretty brand new. So it only represented 20 or 30%, if I remember correctly, of the overall pages and content on the site. So again, when you start deleting like 40, 50, 60% of the website, Google's gonna be like, what the heck's going on here? This site's brand new, right? So deleting low quality content and topically irrelevant content, powerful strategy for improving a website's SEO. It addresses content quality, it addresses topical authority, it addresses relevance. Regularly analyzing the performance and quality of the content on your site can ensure that you're in your expertise and authority. So then that'll lead to better search engine rankings. Again, I love it when we get topical authority and we're doing it with high quality content. Stuff ranks so quickly, and it's like we can publish anything we publish just shoots out of the gate and starts ranking right away. That's a great sign that you're probably on point when it comes to these kinds of things. Okay, so I'm going to pause here and take some questions, and then if we have time, we'll get to a different case study, and I can kind of blow through that and just pull up the highlights.
Awesome, Jared. Very well done. We do have a couple questions here. Let's go ahead and just tackle them one at a time here. The first one is, if you're planning to launch a new product, would you delete like content prematurely in preparation to avoid losing topical authority in your primary product?
So if you're planning to launch a new product, would you delete like content preemptively in preparation to avoid losing topical authority in your primary product. So there's no reason that your site can't maintain its topical authority in a certain topical silo while also building and growing topical authority in another one. It happens all the time as niches expand, as you expand. I think that a lot of times what happens is the jump is too far. And so there's no real way to build out that authority with some of the authority you already have, right? And so we're getting too far removed, and or you're not building that topical authority out fast enough. And so it kind of just starts to tip the scales at some point. It depends on how related they are. And it depends on how much you can kind of internally link without ruining your original topical silo, right? So that's kind of the way you want to venture out. Here's a strategy I know that we've used before is like when we're looking, we'll post, let's say that we have our main topical silo and we want to branch off into the next one. We'll look at a couple of those. We'll post a couple of articles about each of those, and then we'll watch what Google does. We'll internally link them and we'll see where Google's giving us some authority out of the gate. I'm not talking like number one rankings, but is there a certain correlation between certain topics indexing faster, picking up keywords faster, or picking up impressions faster in GSC? That can be a really good indication about which topics to kind of knuckle down on and which one Google sees you as more authoritative on and which one will be a quicker transition for you without diluting your authority.
Okay, very well done. We have the second question here from Wall Mount World. Thanks for joining us today. They say they're trying to understand about deleting content, and they have several hundred items on the website that are discontinued and will never again be on the site as they are no longer manufactured. What should they do with those expired product listings?
I can't imagine a good reason to keep them live. I would imagine that they've hopefully built up some, maybe some links. I would imagine that hopefully those items are somewhat related to something that you are currently selling on that website. And so I would imagine that that's a really good candidate for deleting and 301ing. If it doesn't have any links, there's really not much reason to 301 the content, and I would probably just 410 it. Hopefully, if they're out of stock, you can allow Google to better understand your site by not having those listings live anymore, right? Something we didn't talk about here, but there's also the concept of crawl budget and the fact that if you have a lot of content on your site that either isn't serving your business value or is not something Google likes, they're not ranking it, they're not sending it traffic. If you have a lot of that, you're wasting your crawl budget and you're wasting Google's ability to go to your site and actually crawl, rank, and understand topics that you do want to rank for. So for all those reasons, more than likely, that's a situation of deleting and then either 301ing or 410ing.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Julie also has a great question here. She says, do you find that content deletion works better in certain industries?
Yeah, generally speaking, e-com and content sites, I find it works the best in. E-com, oftentimes because the site structure is so much better, right? So you'll get like target.com/clothing/ women's /tops/ summer, right? And so like the structure, the foldering structure that's native and somewhat inherent in e-com sites means that Google understands topical authority a little bit, I feel, in my opinion, a little bit better. Whereas with a flat URL structure and a lot of mismatched topics across the board, like SaaS sites will get, and it's just got a ton of customer experience and customer service, Zendesk, help desk articles, and they're all, intercollected. It's a little bit harder to unwind the topical silos there. So e-com naturally lend itself to this strategy better. Oftentimes contents are websites, informational type websites are easier as well, just because Google kind of gets a better roadmap for the site, and thus it's easier to unwind some of that and they understand it faster.
Makes perfect sense. Any final takeaways you could give our audience?
Well, let's see here. What I'll do is let me see. I'll publish this in the notes here. If you want to go read another case study where we, I thought I had it up. Let me pull it up here. If you want to read another case study where it was the alternative, it was the situation of low quality content in mass on a website that we bought and we deleted about 75% of. you can go read that. And I don't know how to comment. I should have figured that out beforehand, but I will publish it in the private chat. Maybe somebody can move that over so people can go read that if they want. And then I also have a free site performance sheet if people are interested. It's on the screen there in front of you. It doesn't tell you what to delete, but what it does do is it pulls data from Google Analytics and it pulls data from Ahrefs, and you can sync it all up and you get one dashboard view of how your content is doing in terms of traffic, rankings, backlinks, internal links, and it's all there. And that is a helpful resource when you're trying to slice and dice and figure out, do I need to delete content? Do I need to update content? Do I need to optimize content? Is this a problem because I don't have enough internal links? Is this a problem because I don't have enough backlinks? And having it all in one view to sort and sift is helpful. So that's free. It's what we use at our agency, and I do have a link there. But
all right, Jared, thank you so much. I think we're going to have Kevin or Chris or someone come back on and talk very quickly about next month's speaker, but we really appreciate you making the time. We're excited to have you, and hopefully we can have you speak at State of Search sometime in the future, or just for fun and giggles, come visit us in Texas whenever you can. Okay.
There you go. That would be wonderful. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jared. I think you did a great presentation. My eyes kind of popped out of my head a few times. I was like, wow, that kind of blows me away. Sometimes I think we get stuck with the content on our sites and some of these larger sites, and we just let it sit there forever. And you definitely made the point that you better take a look at it. And, here's the interesting thing, which I didn't ask. I don't know if you watched Google today, but they had a live presentation, and I read that Google is completely changing things. So SEO as we know it is going to be changing. I didn't understand it all. I'm not as good as you guys, but what are your thoughts on what they talked about today? Did you see any of that?
I did. We're doing a podcast recording tomorrow all about Google's updates yesterday. So I have about half of my homework done, and I got to do the rest before we record tomorrow. But yeah, they're basically changing the entire look and feel of the SERP, the search engine result page. You will now be seeing AI generated content above the fold. They are doing attribution or citation of the articles they're pulling from. So when the original BARD came out, there wasn't any of that there. But, so how that plays out, I've heard one person equate it to a much larger AI version of a featured snippet. That would be the optimistic look at it. I've heard people say that this is the end of SEO as we know it. That's certainly the pessimistic look of it, but somewhere in the middle maybe. But yeah, we're going to be optimizing for very different things now, and it's going to be fascinating to see how they roll it out. I do think visually it was pretty appealing if I take my SEO hat off. So yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Kevin?
Yeah.
You ready?
Oh, we're closing out?
Yeah. Unless there's other questions. Does anybody else have any other questions? I don't know if you can see this, but they loved your presentation, Jared. And I learned a lot. And I'm not an SEO and guru like most of you, but I certainly learned a lot. Some basic cleanup that I think a lot of people neglect.
Thank you. Yeah. I should have figured out how to chat, but I can see all the chats. So that's good.
Yeah.
That's
thank
okay.
you so
We
much.
got your link in there. You're all safe. Kevin?
Perfect.
Yeah, that was a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much, Jared. This will be this is live, of course. It'll be recorded. You can go to the State of Search Conference YouTube channel and view it anytime. Thank you, and have a wonderful night.
And before we close out, remember, next month is Julie Jones. And I want to tell you, you don't want to miss Julie with GA4. I don't get it. I don't understand it. But if you listen to her, you will understand it. So don't miss it and come back next month to see Julie Jones talking about GA4, because it is time, because the end of June, it's gone. So come on aboard and see us next month.
Bye, everyone. We'll see you then.
Thank you so much.
Good night, everyone.